Hello everyone and welcome back to another YI video. Today we're going to be talking about a little indie darling hit called R.E.P.O. Or, as the title would suggest, it's R.E.P.O. R.E.P.O is in the vein of a lot of... I don't really want to say it, but it's one of the easiest ways of being able to quickly communicate the basic premise. Is like a lot of these kind of cooperative horror titles where... you have things like Lethal Company, for instance, and Phasmophobia, those kind of things, where you have a group of players between 4 and 6 going into maps that have items that you need to collect or something you need to find, and there's like an AI enemy roaming the area, and you have to try and avoid it because you have very little way of being able to fight back. But that's kind of deceptive, and it really undersells what R.E.P.O does so differently from a game like Lethal Company. And that's not to say that Lethal Company is bad. Lethal Company certainly has its own brand of sort of fun and horror to it, especially when you bring in things like mods and stuff. But I wouldn't really describe R.E.P.O as a horror game, personally. There's no kind of like creeping dread, or the environments are particularly scary, that kind of thing. Really, R.E.P.O is almost a bit like a kind of a party game, in a way. You can have up to 6 people in a lobby, and at the moment, at the time of making this video, the game is only sort of set up for private lobbies or invites, because they had a bit of an issue with basically like hackers and stuff coming in and ruining people's games in public lobbies. So there is a future update that's probably not too far off from when I've recorded this that will add new lobby options and stuff like that, be able to kick players who are being annoying, that kind of thing, in public matches, alongside things like, I think there's a new level coming, and a bunch of other stuff, basically. It's a big update overall. The game is currently early access, but for what it has at the moment, and for its gameplay loop, it's more than adequate. It's a relatively low price, so if it's the kind of game you've had your eye on, and you've got a few friends who you want to sort of jump in with, it is really fun. The basic premise of R.E.P.O is that you're playing as these little robots who are called semi-bots, who are tasked by some enigmatic entity, being, person, who knows, called the taxman. That's what the yellow emote face is that you see on some of the promotional material for the game. Basically, the semi-bots are sent into the levels, which at the moment take place across a creepy mansion, an abandoned research facility in Greenland, and a wizard school, a very Harry Potter-esque kind of wizard school. And the future update, I think, is going to add a art museum or a gallery or something along those lines. So the premise is that the players go in, and what they have to do is they have to navigate the levels, which are procedurally generated every time, and find objects of value. And you have to return them to a drop-off site up to a certain value. The caveat of it is that physics play a big part in the game. Semi-bots can lift objects either on their own or as a group, all dragging larger objects. Because some items can be very small, things like books and gems and stuffed teddy bears, random things like that, to larger objects like televisions, harps, grand pianos, these kind of things. And so navigating them around the map and getting them to the drop-off site is part of the fun, part of the challenge, and a tiny little bit of the frustration. But it's all supposed to be there for the sort of cooperative element of it. And all of these objects that you can pick up can be damaged. They can break. Flinging them around, bashing into each other with them, smashing them into walls and stuff will cause them to take damage, and those objects will devalue. And it is possible to hit a fail state in a level where if you break too many objects, you can't earn enough cash to actually complete the level, which means you will just eventually fail once you figure that out. But more often than not, there is enough stuff around the level that a coordinated group of people can gather the stuff and get the objects to a drop-off point. In the early part of the game, this is relatively simple. You only need somewhere between 8 and 10,000 in the first level. You have a cart that you can put smaller objects in, sometimes larger ones, depending on how much they're worth, and then you can just drop the object off, and that's it. You just leave, and in between the levels, you go to a store, which is some kind of abandoned... like just an abandoned like little sort of like grocery mart thing on the side of the road. The world is very weird. It seems to suggest that humanity's dead, and you're I don't know, you're just being sent down to Earth, or you're being sent up from underground or something to go grab stuff. I'm not quite sure what is going on. There is a story, apparently. There are secrets. And hints to a wider narrative that are going on in R.E.P.O. I'm sure that's the kind of stuff that smarter people or more dedicated people will be able to make entire videos on. But it's an interesting little premise that you can find skeletons of dead people and stuff in places like the store, but also in other locations as well. But basically, yeah, you buy, in between the money that you earn from delivering goods, you then use to buy upgrades and equipment. You can get things like strength upgrades, stamina upgrades, all these kind of things that give you more health, allow you to pick up larger objects easier, grab out objects from a greater distance, being able to do things like being able to run quicker because your stamina upgrades, your sprint speed, all these kind of things. But you'll also be able to get equipment, as I said, things that can detect where the next drop-off site is, detect treasure, be able to set mines or grab weapons to use against some of the entities that exist in the levels. The entities are the closest thing to horror that the game's got, and it really does depend on the entity. Some of them are relatively benign or just slightly annoying, things that you can very easily avoid, as provided you're not being stupid. Some of them are just instant death machines. If you get in the wrong way, then they'll just kill you instantly. But unlike games like Lethal Company and Phasmophobia, death is not the end. In fact, if your semi-bot gets destroyed, another player can actually grab the little head of your robot and place it into a cart, and then once you get enough cash to complete a drop-off, you can be resurrected. You can also resurrect with a semi-bot's destroyed head if you get to the escape vehicle when you've got all the cash that you need. So there is a means of being able to come back. But as I said, the levels start relatively simple, but they do become a lot more complex the further you go into a run. As far as I know, runs are infinite. It's just until you hit a fail state where there's just either you will just die, or you basically can't. You break too many items, and that's it. You just can't complete the orders. The highest I've ever gotten personally is where we had 4 drop-off points. This meant that the maps were very big, had lots of items, but also meant that the amount that you need to get for each drop-off increases exponentially. Where the first level may start with a relatively small amount, the required amounts for later levels can be for each stage 19,000, 20,000 each. And that's a lot of items that you've got to be careful with. But you've also got to be aware that, yeah, there are entities, there are creatures that move around these maps. But one of the really big pluses that I like about R.E.P.O. compared to, say, something like Lethal Company is, in Lethal Company, when an entity has spawned and it is in the level, it will always be there. And so if it's something that you just can't kill, you're kind of screwed. You just have to accept that you're probably going to die. Whereas R.E.P.O. has a system where an entity will kind of move around an area for a bit, but it will eventually go. In fact, I'm pretty sure what happens is they despawn for a time for the entity to then respawn somewhere else. It's a good mechanic, but it also gives the players breathing room. You can have those moments where there is the threat, the fear that this thing is around. You can hide because your semi-bots can actually shrink in size. They sort of kaleidoscopically sort of fit into themselves to crouch, and they can become even smaller again, where they can be picked up and like lifted by other players onto objects and stuff. The physics in it are very entertaining. But yeah, you can hide under beds and tables and chairs and stuff like that. And as long as you're quiet, you probably, more often than not, avoid nearly every creature, because creatures are generally affected by either sight or sound. The game has a big emphasis on in-game voice comms, mainly because of the hilarious animations of whenever you speak, your bot's head bounces up and down like a Canadian head in South Park. It is very entertaining, and the little robots have tons of character and charm to them for such simple designs. There's a very sort of pleasing kind of aesthetic to them. The way the character's eyes will look at the person who's currently talking. There's almost a constant sort of little expression on their face. And yeah, it's just there's a great level of detail in the animations and stuff, just to give a game that would normally be quite oppressive and a little bit tense and sometimes stressful, It gives it levity when someone walks past and they just start saying something stupid, and there's little robots' heads just bouncing up and down as they go about. It has like this kind of Muppet-like quality, and it's really good. Genuinely just fun overall, just moving around the levels and trying to coordinate with other players. But yeah, the level complexity can get quite tricky as well. Where levels early in the game or early in a run will have things just like very large rooms and open plan. Maps later on will start developing things like pitfalls, where if you're not paying attention, you can just drop off to your death. Hell, you can drop off with things like the cart, for instance, and if that's got a lot of stuff in it, you lose all those items, including the cart. So you suddenly have to be much more sort of alert as to what it is you're doing without risking everything for the run. There's also some great little interactive elements in some of the levels, in like TVs and stuff. Some of the objects you pick up can also become either a detriment or just something funny. Sometimes picking up a television, it will start playing a cartoon and making a lot of noise, which obviously is a means to maybe get you killed by a monster. Other things can be haunted dolls that attack everybody once you pick them up. Until you let go of them, they stop attacking. Books that can come alive and try to bite you. Magic staffs that will fire beams of energy randomly if you're not careful, possibly killing friendlies, or hell, being able to kill monsters. Because as I said, you can kill the entities. They're not gone permanently, but they are taken out of the map for several minutes. And, bonus, if you do kill them, you get an orb, which is worth a certain amount based on what the creature is. So sometimes your best bet of being able to try and finish a level where you've maybe accidentally broken everything is maybe trying to kill a monster. If you can grab a physics object or something like that, or hell, one of the treasures that you that don't mind losing, you might be able to trap a monster, beat it to death, that kind of thing. And if you do kill it, you can get the money you need that way. It's all pretty well put together. And as I said, for an early access title that is relatively low priced, if you have a group of friends that you regularly jump into titles like this for, give R.E.P.O a go. It's quite fun. The requirements aren't particularly high. Technically, it runs really well. Haven't had any issues with it. No crashes, that sort of thing. And yeah, overall, the gameplay is just solid. It's just really fun. And as I said, because it doesn't really feel like a horror game, and I am a massive coward for these things. I love playing those kind of horror games. I love Phasmophobia and Lethal Company and any of those kind of cooperative horror titles. I'm a sucker for them, but I am terrified in a lot of them. I am a massive coward. But yeah, I don't feel that level of horror with it. There are moments where you can be jump scared, of course. A thing comes past that has musical stings and stuff like that to catch you out, but it's not the same. It is just genuinely good fun. And the devs are really communicative. They do take a lot of feedback in, and they are working on new content. And because of how successful R.E.P.O has been, they have gone from 6 months early access development to 12, with the intention of adding a lot more to the game. That's hopefully going to mean more levels and items to use, things the semi-bots will be able to do, and yeah, just overall improvement and quality of life features, which for a small game is really good to see. And I'm glad to see a title like R.E.P.O just get the attention it deserves. Yeah, I don't really know what else I can talk about, other than just, you're seeing some gameplay of it running here with myself and Bro and Aman and from that, it's pretty good. I've enjoyed it, and yeah, depending on how long this footage has gone on for, I might just leave the rest of it in. Otherwise, it might just fade out to the outro. Otherwise, have a good one all. Thanks for listening to my YI, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye bye.